Ah. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, that is, to everyone who is actually up on a Sunday morning. Thank you very much for taking the time to drop by. Yes, welcome back to my kitchen, where it is, as I mentioned, Sunday morning, and here in New England, today is the day before Patriots Day, which is a local holiday, but still a state holiday here in Massachusetts. And here in Massachusetts, normally tomorrow, Patriots Day, would have been the running of the Boston Marathon, which they do every year on Patriots Day, except that for the second year in a row, the Boston Marathon has been postponed. Last year, it was completely canceled. They do plan on doing it in October of this year, though. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is because normally each year for the Boston Marathon, I've had a tradition of preparing a nice big pot of Boston baked beans, a traditional New England dish to go with the Boston Marathon. And well, this is as good an excuse as any to prepare some Boston baked beans, so I'm certainly not upset about that, especially because, as this title of this video has mentioned, tonight, we are doing a celebration, in fact, on Facebook, as the Cast Iron Cooking Group celebrates its 10th birthday. And that's really what I'm doing right now. I'm preparing for tonight by getting together a nice big pot of Boston baked beans. So these things are going to be slow cooking all day, and that's why I had to prepare them now this morning. We got ourselves here a nice 7-quart Lodge enameled cast iron Dutch oven. And in this, I've had about 2.5 pounds of beans soaking overnight. Because really, the best way to do baked beans is to do them from scratch, even soaking the beans yourself. And it's really not that hard. So now that that's done, we've got to drain these things, and then we will start preparing this pot for cooking. Let's move over to the sink. Tell how much fun that's going to be. And always something. Do this right, why don't I? Thank you for waiting. Here we go. Ugh. And now, drain these beans so that we can use the pot. Now, when preparing baked beans and especially soaking baked beans, we can move back to a better view now. Some people say that it's really better to reserve the soaking liquid and not to throw it out. And I'm starting to heat the pot now. But my reason for that is because this was actually a saltwater brine. I realize that's not very traditional for making baked beans, but I've learned from experience in that I took the chance based on some reports that if you use a saltwater brine for soaking your beans, it does a much better job of breaking down the hard shells of the beans, and so that way the beans will in fact be softened, and it's done a terrific job. And furthermore, it does not give the beans an overly salty taste. So I am very much a convert of using a saltwater brine for an overnight soak of my baked beans. Although that, first of all, of course, means that you can't, unfortunately, cook the beans in the brine because that is too salty. And it also means that when preparing the ingredients for these baked beans, well, fortunately, for whatever it's worth, you don't have to use a lot of salt in the ingredients. I'm only going to be using like about half a teaspoon of salt to salt all of these baked beans with all the ingredients. So we're off to a good start here. And while we're doing that, let's see. And again, hello again to William Hurd. Beautiful day here. Yeah, it's a little cold here in New England, but better than it's been the last couple of days, where we actually had some snow 2 days ago. Anyway, okay, so now that we've gotten that much out of the way, let's move our view over a little bit more. Thank you, as always, for putting up with this roller coaster. There we go. make sure the microphone is within range this time. And now we get to start prepping our ingredients. We got it, and that's one of the things I like about Boston baked beans is that the ingredients are really so simple to put together. I mean, this is pretty much everything we have here. This is also a good excuse to use this particular chef knife here, this K-bar chef knife. Now, this is actually a little special because this was sharpened and cleaned up for me by Todd Sappenfield, who in fact is a former administrator or moderator of the Cast Iron Cooking Group. Several years ago, I came across this knife at the Brimfield Antique Show. And showing this off on a cutlery group that he is also a moderator of, he volunteered to clean this knife up for me. He did a fantastic job of sharpening the knife, and I was very happy about that. So really, and as I mentioned, he did step down as a moderator of the Cast Iron Cooking Group, but he was one of the original moderators, if I remember right. When the Cast Iron Cooking Group started up, officially in 2011, it was a Facebook page, and then we changed it over to a Facebook group in 2012. I tried running the group myself as the sole moderator, and I think it lasted about maybe 3 to 4 years like that before the group simply became too big that I could not handle it myself, and that's when I started getting volunteers to help moderate the group. And Todd was one of the first. So he certainly has my gratitude for that, and that's why, again, I'm glad to be able to use this knife. And as you can see, why I am still using this knife. Just move these out of the way. And from here, while the pot is heating up, it's really no more than cutting up an onion. And, of course, some bacon, because, you know, as they say, bacon makes everything better. Here we go. I did my best to do as much prep work as possible before the video started. Dice this onion up nicely, I hope. And then from there, we will be ready to get ourselves some bacon. Because, as I said, bacon makes everything better. And, of course, this way, I'll just clean this off a little bit. My favorite way to slice a pound of bacon. That's also how you can tell when you've got yourself a nice sharp knife. So I like that. Besides, this bacon is also going to be chopped up, so that's why you don't need big, long slices, rather. I mean, it's going to be mixed into the baked beans, so I have no problem with actually slicing up the bacon into small pieces. It'll make it easier. It'll cook it faster, although since this is going to be a long, slow cook, that doesn't matter too much. I'm just going to initially brown up the bacon a little bit before this all goes into the oven to slow cook, because, of course, watch yourself here. You know, you get a little bit of extra flavor that way. As the science says, it's the Maillard reaction. It's usually the part where the person doing this cooking video starts talking science. But hey, all we really need to know, of course, is just that bacon makes everything better. And there's your science lesson for the day. Yeah, I think a pound of bacon is probably enough to go into these baked beans. And there's plenty of fat as well. So this is going to render nicely. That didn't take long at all. Now, back to the pot. Do this over, right? And while we're at it, red beans, black beans, field beans. Yeah. For this particular one, I'm using Great Northern beans. That was a tip I learned from Alton Brown regarding making Boston baked beans. Although the traditional beans to use are navy beans. I just heard leaving the root on will spare you the fumes. Well, I haven't tried that yet myself either. Maybe another time. Right now, I just want to do something a little tried and true. Much as I like experimenting, for a dish like this, I'm going to leave the experimenting to later. This is not hot enough yet, I can see. Well, we will just wait and we'll just be able to get this thing to heat up. And once the onions are soft, we'll be able to start adding the rest of it. Okay, well, that's what I get for using an enameled cast iron pot. So here we go. And this demonstrates one of the differences between enameled cast iron, quite frankly, and bare cast iron. Namely that bare cast iron actually does a better job heating up on your stovetop. I mean, after all, here, the heat has to get through the enamel to actually get to the cast iron and make everything nice and hot. So it will take a little longer for this to get good and hot. Nonetheless, as I said, we're not going to be thoroughly cooking the bacon anyway, because once again, this is just going to be a slow cook. Technically, I could just simply mix the ingredients together as is, but I think I'll wait a couple of minutes at least and let this heat up a little bit. Oh yeah, large enameled cast iron pot, which is a pretty good example of just about everything in cast iron. You figure first of all, it's made by Lodge Cast Iron, one of the original cast iron foundries made in from the USA, the only surviving cast iron foundry from the original from the heyday in the mid-20th century. Lodge makes all of their cast iron in the USA, except for their enamel pieces, which are in fact made in China. And there is actually nothing wrong with that because, number one, they exercise strict quality control on their pans. That's why I certainly do trust Lodge's enameled cast iron, even though it's made for Lodge in China. The politics of that is something that has been argued and probably will continue to be argued over. But again, especially on the cast iron cooking group, we enforce a no politics rule for the simple reason that arguing about politics really does not have anything to do with cast iron cooking. The short answer is that a lot of people use Asian-made cast iron, both on the group and off the group, and they're certainly free to do so. The group is not going to try to force anyone to change their opinion or their politics, and that if you have political reasons to oppose Asian-made cast iron, that's certainly your opinion, and you are free to do so. We're not going to force you to either start using Asian-made cast iron or stop using it. All we'll say is that whether or not it's made in the USA or Asia, it's still safe for cooking. And that's about it for that topic. Oh, yeah. Besides, we have bacon here. Who can be mad when we have bacon? And what else do we have here? Bob S. I haven't had my first coffee yet. Boy, that's a sacrifice. Thank you very much for showing up. Yeah, once this is all put together, we will be able to slow cook this for about the next 9.5 hours or so, so that it will be unveiled on the Facebook Live tonight, and I'm very much looking forward to that. Anyway, no point in wasting time, I guess. We'll manage this. Boston baked beans, as I mentioned, so far all I've done is cut up a lot of bacon and a lot of onions, and then from here, it's time to start adding the other ingredients little by little. Technically, you should put all this together in a sauce first, but I see no reason not to just simply do it one bit at a time. It's still all going to end up the same way. We've got ourselves a cup of brown sugar here. And to that, we will add, sticky, a cup of molasses. So yeah, this is going to be, these are some pretty sweet beans, yes. I know I've had a friend in Texas saying about this, the molasses and the sugar makes it so sweet that it's practically candy. I will disagree with that because we have quite a bit of a quite a few savory ingredients that will also be going in with it. And Boston baked beans have quite a history of their own as well. Boston was the major hub in the molasses trade during the days of I guess you could say the colonial era. And as well as, sadly, I'll have to mention it, but only mention it for historical reasons, the slave trade. Yeah, there's a lot of history and a lot of politics involved with that. In that Massachusetts had been traditionally anti-slavery pretty much from the very beginning, and we're proud of that heritage. Although on the other hand, we were still a major hub of the molasses trade, which in turn had a lot to do, regrettably, with the slave trade. And that molasses. Let me see, how does it go? It's like molasses from. Yeah, that's right. Molasses would come into Boston, be changed into rum, which in turn would then be used to help pay for and otherwise supply slave traders going back and forth from Africa to the Americas. It's a sad fact of history, unfortunately. And really, there's nothing I can do to change that. Now, I'm just only saying that to acknowledge it. Having said that, nonetheless, well, that certainly was not the fault of the molasses. So that's why I don't have a problem cooking with molasses and will not have a problem with it. But there we go. Now we've got ourselves a base for our sauce. And to this, we will also mix in 12 ounces of tomato paste. And I can't think of any nasty history having to do with tomato paste, thank goodness. I could talk about how tomatoes were originally believed to be poison, but that I think is really getting off topic here. Oh yeah. Nonetheless, this in turn will really help thicken the sauce and give it some flavor. And to this, we will just simply add our spices. And that, we've got ourselves some black pepper, some kosher salt, some ground mustard, and my secret ingredient in this particular recipe, which would be ground cloves. I do have a link to my website where I have the actual recipe, including the amounts of these ingredients. But now this is definitely going to flavor this and give it, oh yeah, the aroma and the taste of what you would expect from good old Boston baked beans. Furthermore, the color is starting to look more like baked beans now too. I haven't even added the beans yet. Infrared is treated with sulfur dioxide as a measure for preserving the sugar. Wow. Tomato pickers might get offended. Oh well, haters gonna hate. You'd think a subject something as that should be as fun as food and cooking would be relatively free of politics and arguments. Yeah, right. Believe me, I'd say. I know everybody talks about political arguments and conspiracies, and they talk about religious arguments and conspiracies. I would say food arguments and conspiracies are right alongside those in terms of intensity, emotions, history. Well, I mean, after all, food's an important part of our life. And having done this, we're almost done mixing our sauce together. To this, I've got a little bit of an addition as well, which is an equal amount of, did I? No, I didn't. Good. An equal amount of white sugar and vinegar. Kind of like to cancel each other out. So that's 3 tablespoons of white sugar, to which we will mix in 3 tablespoons of good old apple cider vinegar. And that should give that some tartness as well, or at least more of a savory taste. And finally, to all this, we add one bit as well, a dash of Worcestershire sauce. And as far as I'm concerned, Lee & Perrins is the only Worcestershire sauce, accept no imitations. They're not paying me to say that. On the other hand, here I am, accept no imitations, except I can't get the darn bottle open. Give me 1 second here. There we go. Just a dash of Worcestershire sauce. And now this is going to be one heck of a batch of beans. Being a born and bred New Englander, yeah, we grew up on B&M baked beans in my family, and again, there was no other brand that they would ever buy at the store, which is why as much as people like Bush's baked beans, no, I have never been satisfied with them. I cannot tolerate Bush's baked beans, sorry to say. For me, it's been B&M the whole way. Oh yeah, now this is definitely an aroma. Let's see if I can get just a few more drops of this molasses, and then will come the beans and the water. And that's about it. It's really as easy as that. I always wondered why Bush's baked beans were so delicious. Well, didn't that dog finally give away the secret recipe for Bush's baked beans? All right, a few more drops. And I think we are about ready to go. There we go. So even though I wasn't able to crisp the bacon, I am actually seeing some steam from this. So we have been able to cook this sauce a little bit, so we're not doing too badly. Pawpaw Dan. Oh, absolutely, yes. The only difference between light brown sugar and dark brown sugar is the amount of molasses. True. That's all brown sugar is. Sugar plus molasses. And for that reason, I do not like getting light brown sugar at the store because there's really no point in it. I mean, I have yet to have a recipe that would be really changed in any way by using dark brown sugar instead of light brown sugar, which is why I only get dark brown sugar if at all possible. Maple syrup sounds like a good idea. Actually, yes, it does. And quite a few of these different recipes for Boston baked beans do include maple syrup as well, which is another New England tradition. I'm not sure if New England is the #1 maple syrup capital of the world. I think that probably is Canada. But we are definitely close by, and we must certainly be in the top 5 or so. In that New England maple syrup is really something you should not pass up if it's offered to you. Ooh, Andrew Bonificio doing corned beef in the Lodge Dutch oven. Oh, looking forward to that, too. Please show us your results. And now, having said that, time for the beans. This is a 7-quart Dutch oven here, and it's only just barely able to fit all of these beans. Well, this is definitely going to be worth it. As mentioned, I always did like making a big pot of baked beans for the Boston Marathon, and even though the marathon's been delayed, still glad to be able to make this for Patriots Day and for the cast iron cooking birthday party tonight, which again is going to be on Facebook Live because, that is for a Facebook group. With any luck, I'll be able to post the recording of it here on YouTube. Nonetheless, if you are on Facebook, I would indeed like you to drop by, just because we do our best to make the cast iron cooking group a fun group, a group as drama-free as possible, and a group where the only thing that matters is cooking in cast iron. Regardless of whether it's vintage cast iron, modern cast iron, Lodge, Griswold, Field, Butter Pat, Finex, Bayou Classic, Old Mountain, Old Bay, well, not Old Bay, Ozark Trail. It's all welcome on the group. And for that matter, the kind of food you cook is also welcome on the group, whether it's carnivore, vegan, whether some people may think it's gross, like, say, for instance, possum or liver and onions. Or, of course, the dishes we see every day in cast iron and we'll never get tired of. Fried chicken, baked chicken, pizza, cornbread. We want to see it all. If it's cooked in cast iron, it is welcome on the cast iron cooking group. And the moderators, whom I will be giving many thanks to during the celebration tonight, do their best to ensure the focus is on the cooking and not on arguing, which on Facebook is unfortunately something of a rare commodity, which is why I very much want to give the moderators of the group a lot of credit for all the work they've done over the past 10 years. And to this, all we have to do now is cover it up. Could use chicken broth. I'm actually out of chicken broth, unfortunately. I always overlook something. So just have to use good old water. Essentially, we need enough to cover the beans, maybe just slightly more, and that's about it. I'll be checking on it during the day as well, and if I have to refill it, I will. But with a heavy lid on this, that shouldn't be likely. The oven, by the way, is only heated to a little more than 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Because we will be slow cooking this all day. That looks like it might have been about half a gallon of water. Oh, this will be plenty of liquid, in fact. And there we go. And that is how easy it is to prepare a pot of Boston baked beans, which, if you have never made Boston baked beans, I highly recommend you do so, because as you can see, it's very easy to make. All that we really need at this point is patience, because once this goes into the oven, it's going to be in the oven for the next 9 hours. No, actually no ham hock this time. The main reason is that this is only the side dish for tonight. We're going to be making some steaks as well tonight to celebrate the Facebook group. So it's enough that there's a pound of bacon in here. All right, let's let's move this out of the way. So that we can get this in the oven. Oh, drat. All right. Looks like I forgot something. And that would be... I forgot to adjust the oven rack. Take two. There we go. Much better. And that takes care of that. Hey, 9 hours in the oven. What temperature, and do you stir them during this time? I might stir them once, maybe about halfway through, and that's about it. Largely, this is like a set it and forget it. This is set to about 250 to 260 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's really all that needs to slow cook for all this time. If you look up the history of Boston baked beans, you'll see that they actually just simply made this in a bean pot and buried in the ground, surrounded by coals, and left it there for as long as 24 hours and more. So obviously they were not able to stir the beans then either. I've made this dish many times, and in general, I find it's not necessary to stir the beans, although I do have to check on them at least once, maybe about halfway through, to make sure that the water hasn't evaporated. And if that's the case, we just add more water, so that by the time it's done tonight, there will be a layer of what they call bark on the top, and all of the beans will still be soft and thoroughly cooked underneath. And Sequoia Apocalypse. I just bought the vintage Lodge Sportsman deep fish fryer with the mallard on the lid, just like you have. I'm so excited. Oh, well, congratulations. And believe me, I am not being sarcastic about that. You got yourself a nice score there. The best I can say is get a lot of use out of it, because you certainly will not regret it. I mean, obviously, it's a great deep fryer. It's also really like a mammoth-sized Dutch oven, so that anything you can make in a Dutch oven, you can make in that. Just lots of it. I like the grunts. I don't. But, well, what can I say? It's like, I am unfortunately not the spring chicken I used to be. I'm just getting over a wrist injury, in fact. I want to see your shirt design, if you don't mind. Well, all right. Give me 1 second. That is, in fact, Ganesha, the Hindu god. This is a T-shirt I picked up at a religious retreat a few years ago. And thank you for temperature and storing info. Well, like I said, the link to the recipe is in the description of this, along with links to a couple of other videos where again, I have done just that and made these Boston baked beans. And hello, Fluffy Otter, although it says message retracted for some reason. Other than that, we are just about ready here, because, again, this is not going to be one of those long hour and a half long lives here. We just did what we had to do. We have prepared ourselves some Boston baked beans. They're in the oven, and they will be revealed tonight on Facebook Live, which will be starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 9.5 hours from now. I'm looking forward to it. And I would really encourage everybody to drop by because, the more the merrier. That's really what makes these things a lot of fun. So, well, thank you very much. As Papa Dan says, see y'all tonight. Have yourselves a good day, folks, too. Enjoy the weather.